Have you ever disagreed with someone on a theological issue? I'm guessing if you have been in the church for a period of time, that you have likely run into someone who disagrees on a particular theological point from yourself, or maybe thinks differently about it. I think sometimes when we think about the New Testament, we kind of have this illusion that the early believers were unified on everything and that they never disagreed. That because they had been with Jesus, they knew all the answers and they always got it totally right. But then we read Acts chapter 15. And this is really interesting. It says, some men came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the brothers, unless you're circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. But here's verse 2. This is interesting. This brought Paul and Barnabas into sharp dispute and debate with them. There are things that are worth talking about. And here, Paul and Barnabas think that this topic of circumcision, which was particularly applicable to their situation, because what started as a Jewish movement, because Jesus was Jewish, grew to include those outside of Judaism. And so circumcision was a Jewish custom. It was a sign of the covenant given to Moses. And so Jews took it very seriously. And the question arose, well, what do we do with all of these new Gentile believers? Do they have to be circumcised too? And so here in this scenario, some men came to Antioch from Jerusalem and were teaching that, yes, actually, in order to be a Jesus follower, you also need to be circumcised. And Paul and Barnabas said, no. Faith in Jesus, putting your allegiance in him, is what denotes your entrance into the new covenant, not circumcision. Your baptism now is an evidence of whether in which covenant you're participating in. And circumcision was for the old covenant. And so Paul and Barnabas really feel very strongly about this theological topic. So what did they do? This is the question that I think that we have to ask from this text. So what did they do? You know, you and I, we can disagree with someone else. And it can be a to the core of our being disagreement, like what Paul and Barnabas experienced here, a sharp dispute. But that doesn't mean that it needs to divide us as believers. And it certainly doesn't mean that it gives us free license to share our opinions in whatever manner we like. Rather, I think the first thing we need to remember is that those we disagree with are human beings. Those we disagree with are image bearers. They bear God's image, and thus, just because they are alive means that they're worthy of our honor and our respect. And so in this story, what happens is that Paul and Barnabas were appointed, along with some other believers, to go up to Jerusalem to see the apostles and elders about this question. And then in verse 6 it says, the apostles and elders met to consider this question. I have a question for you. What if, when you find yourself in a sharp disagreement with someone, you met that person? Maybe it's in a Zoom call, maybe it's on the telephone, or maybe it's face-to-face. I think sometimes when we are in a disagreement with others, we forget their humanity. We forget that they bear the image of God. We forget that they're real flesh and blood people. And instead, sometimes we choose to attack others and the ideologies that they hold. I can't imagine that this pleases Jesus. Rather, I want us to proceed forward with grace and love, seeking unity whenever we have sharp disagreements. They're bound to happen. How we handle them is important. Check out Acts 15 and how they handled their disagreement there.